So thank you very much, and I'll hand over to BirdLife Zimbabwe.
Right. Good evening, everybody, and greetings from Zimbabwe. And it's been really exciting to be able to be part of this African Bird Club talk. And thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. I would like to present the team that will be presenting to you tonight. First up is Toga Pakarai. Toga is the BirdLife Zimbabwe Important Bird and Biodiversity Program Manager. Toga, do you want to, can we see you? And he will be doing his presentation first, and followed by Abigail Karmansira. Abigail is an African Bird Club grantee. She'll be talking to you about Lilian Lovebirds. And she's been supported by BirdLife Zimbabwe in order to do her research. She's a young conservationist, very keen, and is an incredible birder. Next up will also be Shinny Sakarambe. Shinny will be talking to you about blue swallows in the Eastern Highlands of Zimbabwe. He is also an African Bird Club grantee, and his research is really exciting, and the Eastern Highlands, the whole of the Eastern Highlands, is a key biodiversity area and absolutely exquisite. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Toga to talk to us about advancing bird and biodiversity conservation in IBA KBAs through local engagement and empowerment in Zimbabwe. Thank you so much. Over to you, Toga.
Thank you very much, Julia. Good evening, all. And I'm going to share with you this presentation on how we engage with local people at KBAs and IBAs. Let me just move to the next slide. So in Zimbabwe, we do have a total of 20 important bird and biodiversity areas. And as you can see, they are scattered across the whole country. And some of our IBAs, I would say most of our IBAs, they also overlap with protected areas. But however, we also have some which are completely outside a protected area. For example, like the Driffontein grasslands, which is central on the central part of Zimbabwe. Some which are also in protected area, but they also overlap in communal areas which are not really protected. So this is just an overview of the distribution of IBAs in Zimbabwe. Then we do have IBAs in the eastern part of Zimbabwe. These ones, they also form part of the Eastern Afro-Montane Biodiversity Hotspot. And this is one of the 35 biodiversity hotspots in the world. And the Eastern Afro-Montane Biodiversity Hotspot has got 14 biodiversity corridors. One of the corridors is here, the Chimanimani Nyanga Mountain. So we do have five IBAs, which are also key biodiversity areas within this Eastern Afro-Montane biodiversity hotspot. Now let me move on to some of the threats to our IBAs. These we do have these threats such as encroachment of agriculture into sensitive habitats. In some of the IBAs, in particular those that are located in communal areas. Issues of fires are also a problem, and also overgrazing, sometimes human disturbances, and in some cases also overexploitation of resources there, and the issue of alien invasive species, especially in the Chimanimani area. We do have, Nathra polyandis, which is an invasive species spreading in that particular IBA. Also, climate change is also a threat to IBAs. So what is BirdLife Zimbabwe's approach to conservation? Having all these threats, our approach, we engage and empower local people. We work very closely with local people who are living in and around these IBAs. We also build their capacity in terms of monitoring the IBAs. And again, we also conduct some joint species monitoring, species and habitat monitoring with them. So the idea is also to empower them so that they also be part and parcel of the process. This is just to show you some active involvement of communities like in the Driefontein grasslands. And besides the rural communities, we also collaborate with key government institutions when we do habitat and monitoring as well as species monitoring. These are some of the tools that we use in terms of monitoring. I think you're all familiar with the IBA monitoring framework. We also provide training to local communities. We also use the management effective tracking tool, which is almost similar to the IBA monitoring framework, but it's more detailed one. Then in terms of ecosystem services, we also use a tester toolkit. We have applied this toolkit at two of the sites, two of our IBAs, and we wish to also to apply it in other IBAs should resources become available. And again, social survey tools, yes, we also use them. IMET, we have not applied the IMET tool, but we are yet to apply it in future. There are plans to apply it in some of our IBAs in future. This is just to show you some of the findings from the social survey in terms of human perceptions on birds. And the terms we find also very interesting to see how people think about birds. And this also helps us to build some interventions to address some of the challenges faced in these IBAs. This is just findings from the Driefontein grasslands. Then I would also want to focus more on the conservation achievements. We have a total of 10, at least 10 active local conservation groups or site support groups, which have been established at IBAs. And we have also established some livelihood activities at IBAs, like in the Driefontein grasslands, and also pilot projects in the Chimanimani IBA. The idea of establishing livelihoods is to try and improve community livelihoods, to reduce poverty, because poverty is the main driver to biodiversity loss. So the idea is just to reduce pressure on biodiversity. We have also done some habitat restoration, working together with local stakeholders, and we've done this in Driefontein, in the Chimanimani mountains as well. As I said, basically economic valuation of ecosystem services. We have using the tester toolkit. We did it in Chimanimani and Driefontein. I'm going to show you some of the results later on. And again, joint species surveys. So the interesting part is we work and collaborate with the local stakeholders to achieve these conservation outputs. This is just to show you some of the livelihood activities undertaken in our IBAs, like beekeeping and also poultry productions. These are aimed again to reduce pressure on biodiversity. And one of the interesting things you can also see women involvement in activities such as beekeeping, as well as the broiler production. This is the idea is also to engage and also involve more and more people, especially women and children, in biodiversity conservation. Then in terms of habitat restoration, we have done some restoration activities in the Chimanimani mountains. We all know Chimanimani mountains was hit by cyclone Idai in March 2019, and there were lots of destruction. So those are some of the initiatives that we do in this IBA. Again, this photo is for the Driefontein grasslands, where we do have a network of wetlands, but one of the challenges is also, you can see a degraded steep here. So we have done some restoration of these wetlands. And I just want to show you one of the restored part of the wetland. We restored the main or sensitive part of the wetland, and this is how it looks like after the 2020-2021 raining season. And it also became one of the breeding sites of the cranes in the Driefontein grasslands. So we have yielded some positive results from the restoration activities in terms of attracting breeding pairs. We have attracted more than 5 breeding pairs in the Driefontein grasslands on the restored wetlands sites. And this is just to show you some of the results in terms of our monitoring since 2018 of both grey-crowned crane and white-throated cranes in the Driefontein grasslands. As I have indicated earlier on, following the use of Tesla toolkit in terms of establishing the economic value of the ecosystem services, these are some of the results from the harvested wild goods in the Chimani Mani, the benefits communities get from our IBA. So it is very, very important also to link this with conservation, so that if communities also understand these benefits, they also get involved in biodiversity conservation. So you can see, for example, from the honey per household, this is the net economic value of $742 per year. So it's quite a lot of money which is realized, and we got these results following the assessment of ecosystem services. And one of the interesting things that we have noticed is that when people really starting to realize the economic value of the ecosystem services, they become more and more involved in biodiversity conservation. Then in terms of our priority IBAs and size and actions, in the Driefontein grasslands, we hope to do more in terms of consistent species monitoring rather than being project-based. So this is something that should be ongoing. At the moment, we have the Darren-funded project, and we've managed to do some ground surveys of cranes since 2019 there. But we hope, beyond the project, we hope to continue with these surveys and monitor. And also the habitat restoration as well is something that needs to be continued. We have already initiated that, and we have seen some positive results, but a lot needs to be done in this IBA. Also, engaging the youth through maybe games such as soccer, football is something that we wish to do in places like Driefontein grasslands. Then in Chirinda Forest, we have already established a site support group there, but we have not done much. And we wish to do more in terms of education and awareness, as well as also training on the application of site monitoring tools, the training the local stakeholders there, and perhaps initiate a livelihood activity in the Chirinda Forest IBA. It's one of the rainforests that is found in Zimbabwe, southeastern part of Zimbabwe. So it is an interesting rainforest there. Then in the Chimanimani Mountains, we all know that Chimanimani Mountains was hit by Cyclone Idai. I've mentioned that earlier on. And also, while the area is still trying to recover from the damages happened, then there are also issues of COVID-19. So there are lots of challenges in the Chimanimani, and we still have lots of work to be done in that area. That include habitat restoration, as well as strengthening community livelihoods. And we wish also to test the IMET tool in the Chimanimani mountains. Then species monitoring is also of priority, considering that the site has been damaged by the cyclone Idai. Then in terms of the other IBA, it's Vumba Highlands. There we wish to enhance environmental education there, working closely with local stakeholders. And we also need to do the ecosystem service valuation there, as well as joint species monitoring. Then in the Stapleton IBA, it's also another priority site where we wish to continue do the joint species monitoring, especially of blue swallows and other species there, where we working with the group that was established there around 2014. So again, we also wish to do some basic economic valuation of ecosystem services, as well as using the IMET tool in terms of establishing more data on biodiversity, and also engage the communities in the monitoring of this site. So we have not yet applied this tool, although we have applied the IBA tool, but we wish also to use the IMET in the Stapleton Forest. Then another priority site is also the Nyanga Mountains as well. We need also to do more in terms of monitoring of species at this IBA. I know Shinny is going to talk about the blue swallow, the project he did there. So a lot needs to be done. Also, there are issues of alien invasive plant species in the Nyanga area. So it's something that needs to be done to improve conservation in that IBA. Then from our work in terms through involving and working closely with communities, these are some of the lessons learned from what we have been doing, that when we empower communities in species monitoring, there is a great potential to contribute or to generate meaningful scientific data from the local stakeholders. And it's a matter of building and enhancing the citizen science there. And it's very, very important here in Zimbabwe. Once you involve more people there, they also contribute positively. Then, although biodiversity conservation can take different shapes, we all know that its quality also depends on a holistic approach that is people-centered. So the conservation goals, they can only be achieved through engaging the local stakeholders. And we have seen this working very well in the IBAs where we are working. And they also generate some local-based solutions. We are not staying in that area, but we also get recommendations or get solutions from the people who have got historical knowledge of that area. That is very, very important in terms of including the local people. And also, yes, as I've said, connecting people and biodiversity, it always yields positive results there. And I think from what I've shared with you, you have already seen some of the results, positive results we got in terms of working closely with the people. And up to now, we are always in touch with the site support groups and local stakeholders at IBAs, again, giving us more information on species, more information on sightings. So it's very, very important to work with them, and it's very important to empower them at IBAs. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Julia, over to you.
Thank you, Togo. That's magnificent. You have been perfect at your timekeeping. I think you have 1 minute left. So everybody, Togo, if you can stop sharing your presentation, and Abigail can start sharing hers. Abby, can you start sharing? You'll have an opportunity, everybody, to, if you can just make note of your questions, and we'll be able to ask Togo questions. And of course, what we will be able to do, so as Paul was saying, you'll be able to see these presentations on the African Bird Club site that you'll be able to look at, go through again if you're more interested. And of course, afterwards, you can always contact us for further information. We're always at the end of an email. Thank you. Right, so Abigail, over to you, please. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abigail Karmansira, and I'm going to be presenting on the state of Lilian's lovebirds in Manapos National Park. So I'm still early in the conservation work, and I love to explore and to do research work. So a couple of years ago, we had a visitor. We had Dr. Tionke Mzumara from Malawi, and she visited Zimbabwe to just tour around Lilian's lovebird distribution range. And I had a chance to visit with him, to tour around its distribution with her. And I just realized that we really have a gap here in Zimbabwe, and that we don't have much information in terms of the Lilian's lovebirds. And she has done much of research work on Lilian's lovebirds in Malawi and in Zambia. But here in Zimbabwe, we really have a gap in terms of information. So I just realized that it was a gap, and I thought I would research on the state of Lilian's lovebird in Manapos National Park. So I wrote a proposal to African Bird Club last year, and I received a research grant to study Lilian's lovebird in Mana Coast National Park. So I'm going to start by giving just a brief background on lovebirds. So lovebirds are the smallest parrots in the genus Agapornis, and they are all found in Africa and Madagascar. So we have 9 species of lovebirds, and of which 8 are endemic to the African continent, and 1, which is the gray-headed, is endemic to Madagascar. And all of these African species have a bright green plumage with facial mask of varying colors. And the Madagascar species is a bright green plumage and a completely gray-haired. And they are all very popular pets and aviary birds. So I'll move on to their distribution. So here I have a map which is showing all the lovebirds distribution, and this table is showing their threat status and distribution. So I will just talk about those that are found in Zimbabwe. We have Agapornis liliana, which is the Lilian's lovebird. It has a near threatened status, and it is found in Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Tanzania. And its population is suspected to be in decline. And also we have the black-cheeked lovebird, which is found in Zambia and also in Zimbabwe in Victoria Falls. And you can see on this map, it is shown by this purple color. So it has a vulnerable threat status. And then I'll move on to the Lilian's lovebird, or Nyasa lovebird. They are called, they were named after Lilian Elizabeth Sclater, who was a British naturalist, and she was the one who first observed the Lilian's lovebirds in the Upper Shire River in Malawi. And the birds are classified as near threatened on the IUCN Red List due to its small population, which is also estimated to be less than 20,000, and also thought to be in decline. And it is also listed on the Appendix 2 of CITES because of the illegal wildlife trade. And it occurs in southeast Zambia and southern Tanzania, which is along the Luangwa River into Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and also along the Shire River in southern Malawi. And in Zimbabwe, we can find this bird in the middle Zambezi, below the escarpment from the Angwa and Unyani rivers westward to Binga and Suna. And most of its suitable habitat has been lost within the Kariba Basin due to the damming of the Zambezi River. So this map is showing the distribution of Lilian's lovebirds in Africa. So I'll move on to the next slide. So in terms of the Lilian lovebird, it has a strong association with Colophosperma mopane woodlands. So they roost and nest in tree cavities of the Colophosperma mopane woodlands, and they are called secondary cavity users in the case that they take advantage of naturally occurring cavities in trees, especially the mopane woodlands, the mopane trees. And they feed mostly on grass seeds, agricultural crops, which are millet, sorghum, rice, and also they feed on flowers of the Phaidebia albida, or the anna tree, and also the ficus. They also feed on ficus fruits. And they are monogamous breeders, and they lay from 4 to 5 eggs. And some studies, they say they lay about 3 to 6 eggs, and that is between January to April. And incubation starts with the first laid egg, and it's done by the female only, and takes about 23 to 25 days, and fledgling is done after 44 days. And it is a highly gregarious bird. They move in flocks from 30 to hundreds or even more than that, and they congregate at water holes to drink. They actually depend on water sources. So there are threats to Lilian's lovebirds within their distribution range, and these are the habitat loss due to deforestation for agriculture, and also there's harvesting of charcoal, harvesting for charcoal production, and also there's also harvesting for timber and tobacco curing, and also habitat loss is happening due to urban and rural expansion into forest areas. And also climate change is causing a lot of drought and low rainfall. And also there's trapping of wild birds for the illegal wildlife trade. And there's poisoning of water was due to illegal pest control and poaching. And also there's damming of the Zambezi, which has caused a lot of habitat destruction and flooding of the feeding grounds. So I'll move on to the research, what I've been doing. So we have done a research from last year, and we started in November. So we did 2 surveys in November and in May. November last year, that was in 2020, and also in May, that is 2021. So we've done a research in Manapos National Park. So Manapos National Park is located in a semi-arid region in the far north of Zimbabwe, and it is in the region of Lower Zambezi Valley, and also covers an area of about 2,196 square kilometers. And it is a protected area which is under the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Authority. And it is also an important bird and biodiversity area, also a Ramsar site and a World Heritage Site. And the major vegetation communities that are found there include the riparian vegetation, which is dominated by Phaidebia albida woodlands, and also the Commiphora combretum thickets and Colophosperma mopane woodlands. So here is a map which is showing the location of Manapos National Park. Right here, this green area is showing the Manapos National Park. Okay, so I've done a research on Lilian's lovebirds because of they have a restricted range here in Zimbabwe. They are only found right in the far north of Zimbabwe. As you can see on this map, they are only found from the Middle Zambezi Valley going down to this point at this area. This is where it is found. So they have a restricted range, and also there is insufficient information for conservation efforts. Like what I said before, much studies have been done in Malawi and in Zambia, but in Zimbabwe, we really have any information gap, and we don't have any information to make any sound decisions, and also even to give any inputs into to global conservation efforts. And also its population is suspected to be in decline, and there is much habitat destruction in its distribution range, and also illegal wildlife trade. So the objectives of the research were to assess the presence and distribution of Lilian's lovebirds, and also to assess the level of threats to the lovebirds. So I'll move on to the findings. So we found out that Lilian lovebirds are present in mature mopane woodlands and in riparian forests, which is so they are found in they are present in the mature mopane woodlands and also in the riparian forests in the floodplains which are along the Zambezi Valley. And we found about 9 resting sites, and 8 were in mopane woodlands, and 1 was found in the combretum species, and which is quite a rare case because most of them are found in the mopane woodlands. And we also observed that Lilian's lovebirds, they fly from the mopane woodlands to the floodplains. And in these floodplains, that's where there is a lot of the riparian vegetations, where there is the Phaidebia albidas, and most invasive species also are found in the floodplains. And also, we also observed that most of the lovebirds were also found in the Phaidebia albida trees, and also most of them forages on the ground in grasses. So I have these two tables here, which are showing the abundance of lovebirds in 4 different vegetation types. So we have the Faudebia and Acacia, and then Mopane woodlands. Then we have grass cover under woodlands, and the Croton argentias, which is an invasive species in Manapos National Park. So in Manapos National Park, there are no grasslands, but there's just grass covers which are under woodlands. And most of these grasses most of them were in the floodplains, mostly under the Faidebia and the acacias. So the table 1 here is showing the lovebirds before rainfall. That is the first survey we did. That was in November 2020. And table 2 is showing Lilian lovebirds after rainfall. That was this year in May 2021. So as you can see on the table, in table 2, we have more lovebirds than in table 1. So we found out that Manapos National Park might be a key breeding site for the Lilian's lovebird, as they breed from January to April. And in some studies, they say soon after breeding, they tend to move around their breeding sites. So it could be a reason why we had more numbers in the second survey just after the rainfall. And also another reason could be maybe in the Mopane woodlands, as you can see here in the Mopane woodlands, in table 1 we have 248, but in table 2 we have 407 lovebirds. Could be maybe the drinking pens which are within the woodlands had water, but before rainfall they were dry. So could be also another reason that they could hang around in Mopane woodlands just because they could drink nearby. So this is it on the numbers in Manapos National Park. So just to make it a little bit fun, I have conducted the research and using BirdLife to get information. So BirdLife is a project in Southern Africa it's a Southern African bird atlasing project, and BirdLife is an application that is used to collect data. So I used BirdLife to collect the Lilian's lovebird data. And so when you collect the data, you use what we call pentards or quarter degree squares. So these squares that we are seeing here are the pentards. So these are the areas that we moved. So this blue color is showing the areas that we didn't see anything. And also some of the areas we were not able to reach, and also where there are no, So in these areas where there are no squares, we were not able to visit that area, and because of our vehicle, which is not really an off-road vehicle. And then on this yellow color, we found less than 17 beds. Then this pink color, we found more than 17 to 59 beds. And then the dark green color, we found more than 59 beds to 776 beds. So we find out that most of these beds, they congregate more along the Zambezi Valley. So in terms of the vegetation distribution in Manapos National Park, so along this valley, there's a lot of riparian vegetation where there's Faidebia albida trees, and there's a lot of alluvial deposits. And then further up here, this area, that's where you get the Mopane woodlands. So we figured out that these Lilian's lovebirds, they move every day from the Mopane woodlands to the floodplain where they feed. And mostly they feed on the ground in grass, in the grasslands or the grass cover, which is under the Phaidebia albidas. And that's why we could see that most of them congregate here along this Zambezi Valley. So we had an education and awareness. Okay, sorry. So we did a capacity building. We did a workshop. We were helped by the ecologist of the Zimpax, and we did a workshop with the rangers and also with the stakeholders in this park. And the stakeholders included the painted dog conservation staff and also the bushlife support unity and wilderness safari staff. So we just did a workshop and awareness on the Lilian's lovebird ecology. So these are the threats in Manapus National Park, the threats to the Lilian's lovebird. There's tree mortality, which is probably due to a change in soil chemistry or diseases and climate change. Then there's a lot of invasive species, which are the croton trees, which along the Zambezi, the riparian forest along the valley floor. And also there's climate change, which is causing a lot of premature drying up of seasonal plants and also degradation of foraging sites. Then there's a competition for roosting holes with other species like squirrels and hornbills. Then large herbivores like the Loxodonta africana is impacting on mature Mopane woodlands. Then these are the research and conservation gaps. We need to find out what is causing tree mortality. And also we need to do a habitat suitability study and also feeding ecology, breeding biology, and also to find out the distribution and abundance outside the Manapus National Park. And we also want to do a social interactions with humans, as in some communities they are regarded as pests, and with climate change, the human-wildlife conflict is being exacerbated. And also we need to do education and awareness in communities within its distribution range. And also we need to have a monitoring of their roosts and nest sites. And we also need to do a transboundary, to have a transboundary conservation project, as we can see in this map. As you can see, we have this range, which is covering both Zimbabwe and Zambia, and also Mozambique at the same time. So we really need to have a transboundary conservation project. So that's all I have on the research. So I just want to acknowledge African Bird Club for funding this project, and also to thank BirdLife Zimbabwe for the support, and Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority for granting the permission to do this study, and also Dr. Tionge Mzumara for guiding, and my survey team, Shinny Sakarambe, Ronald Chirumuta, and Jimmy Muropa. Thank you. Over to you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Abigail. That was wonderful, thank you. The magnificent Mana Pools National Park. It's absolutely incredible. The birds are wonderful, and we invite you all to come and see it. Seeing is believing. Right, next up is Shinny Sakarambe. Shinny, are you there? Can you start sharing your presentation? And over to you. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you, Julia, and good evening. Good evening to you all. So my name is Shinny Sakarambe. I am part of the BirdLife team, And in the last quarter of 2020 and also the first quarter of this year, 2021, I was leading a team for Blue Swallow Survey project in the Eastern Highlands, focusing mainly on Nyanga, important bird and biodiversity areas. So my team comprised mainly of 5 passionate young individuals, as you can see on the screen. And also, I was also joined by the Nyanga ecologist, who was also part of my survey team. It was quite an interesting project, thanks to the funding from the African Bird Club. So tonight I'm going to be presenting on the conservation status of blue swallows in Nyanga and the surrounding areas. So maybe as an outline, I'm going firstly to give you a brief background to the project area. And also I'm going to be describing about the blue swallows, their appearance, distribution patterns, and their migration patterns. Then I would then give you a snapshot of the project activities and also the outcomes of the activities that we were doing, and then probably conclude by the conservation challenges and what we think needs to be done in the Nyanga area. Okay, so we focused mainly on Nyanga important bird and biodiversity area, and also included some of the areas that surround Nyanga. So Nyanga important bird and biodiversity area is mainly comprised of the Nyanga National Park, which forms the core site of the IBA. And the Nyanga National Park is about 427 square kilometers in size, and it forms part of the Eastern Highlands. In terms of the Nyanga National Park, it's basically surrounded by privately owned commercial farms, forestry plantations, tea estates, which is in the Honde Valley, and also some communal lands. And also the park shares boundary with a small town of, with the resort town of Nyanga. And I'm going to be talking about some of the conservation challenges relating to that issue. And also Nyanga is generally a popular tourist destination, mainly because of the fact that it is the highest mountain peak in Zimbabwe, and also the Mtarazi Falls, which is among some of the highest waterfalls in Africa, dropping at around 360 meters. So in terms of biodiversity in Nyanga, the area is predominantly montane forest grasslands, which is the preferred habitat for the blue swallows. And also it's home to several other endemic and range restricted species, and also some amphibians and also bird species, which some which are threatened with extinction according to the IUCN red list. And of interest to us, of course, the blue swallows, which vulnerable in terms of their global status, and also the Swinnerton's robin, which is also vulnerable and found mainly in the Honde Valley, where there is some rainforest kind of vegetation. Okay, so in terms of birds that are found in Nyanga, there are plenty of range-restricted bird species, which are quite interesting. We have got the striped flufftail, for example, the Guineas sugarbird, and also the blue swallows, which was, of course, the focus of my project. Then to give a small background about the blue swallows, you would know that the blue swallows are Indo-African migrants, and they are Africa's endemic bird species. And they are often, of course, confused with other, especially in some communities, they are confused with other swallows, like, for example, the eastern sowings. But in terms of their appearance, blue swallows are blue in terms of their underparts and upperparts, with males which are distinct mainly by the long outer tails, and they are a bit bigger if to be compared to their females. Then the females are slightly smaller in size, and they've got shorter outer tails. Okay, then in terms of habitat, blue swallows mainly prefers the Afro-montane grasslands and also the montane wetlands with streams which forms some shallow valleys, especially in the interlocking pairs. And they do nest in advac holes, singles, and also in buildings and under bridges. Then here in Zimbabwe, blue swallows only comes for breeding in the period between September to late March and early April. Then they migrate to their non-breeding areas, to areas such as Tanzania, Uganda, and Northeast Democratic Republic of Congo. In terms of global population, blue swallows are estimated to be around 1,000 to maybe 1,010 pairs in total. And you'd find that in their breeding areas, we have got Malawi, which hosts more in terms of the proportion of that number of around 600 pairs, and also followed by Zimbabwe, which hosts around 580 to 590 pairs. And this then explains in terms of conservation, the importance of conserving some of the habitat that we have here in Zimbabwe. Then in terms of distribution in their non-breeding areas, we have got Uganda, which was the largest proportion of around 900 pairs, and followed by Kenya. Then blue swallows globally, they are vulnerable, as I have alluded to earlier on, and according to the IUCN Red List criteria. But then you'd find out that in some areas, like for example, in the Eastern Africa, that's Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, and according to the East Africa Regional Red Data criteria, they are classified as endangered. And then the South African population of blue swallows is classified as critically endangered. Then in terms of distribution here in Zimbabwe, they are mainly found in the Eastern Highlands, that is from Nyanga down to the Chimanimani. And the largest proportion of breeding population is found in the Nyanga IBA, and this explains our choice for the ABC funded project that we undertook last year and part of this year. Then in this table is showing the distribution of breeding population here in Zimbabwe. You'll find that Nyanga Mountains has got the largest proportion of the breeding population of around 200 pairs. And in terms of their population trend, they are believed to be decreasing. And this is followed by Chimanimani, which has got about 75 number of pairs, with its population also decreasing. Then with regards to the project activities that we undertook last year and also part of this year, our project involved two main aspects. And number one is a survey that we conducted to determine distribution of blue swallows in Nyanga, and then also to assess the extent and nature of threats to the blue swallow habitat. And then secondly, we had a community engagement, education and awareness. And we developed some education awareness materials that we distributed in the government offices, in schools, and also shared with some of the communities that we held some meetings with. So as part of the findings of our project, and in terms of the blue swallows, firstly, we discovered that a significant number of pairs are breeding outside the protected areas. And as you can see on that chart on your screens, 54% of all the sightings that we saw were in the protected areas, and around 42 to 44% outside protected areas, which is quite a significant number, and that speaks to what we need to think around in terms of conserving habitat for the blue swallows. And then apart from that, we also find out that the quality of the blue swallow preferred habitat is significantly deteriorated, and we are speaking to the we are talking to the montane grasslands. And also there is a serious lack of knowledge on the plight of blue swallows among community people who are sharing habitat with these iconic birds. So in terms of conservation problems that we noted as we were undertaking some of the activities, there is a widespread challenge or issue of invasive plants in that particular IBA in Nyanga. And as you can see on your on the picture, a grassland, but you can see that the, a mixture of both pine trees and wattles are slowly encroaching into this area. And the same applies to the other picture to your right, where you can see further to the left of that picture, you see a bunch of black wattle, which is sprouting in the midst of that grassland. And also, besides invasive plants, you'd find out that some of these invasives, like the pines and the wattles, they thrive very well in veld fires. And one of the issues in that in Nyanga has been veld fires, which causing or which are fueling the spread of some of the invasives. Okay, so this satellite image is showing how the invasives, particularly black wattle, has devoured some of the grasslands in Nyanga, and they have actually taken over most of the grasslands. And you find that in around 1993 to 1994, estimates were that about 40% of the park was already covered by the invasive wattle tree and pines. And this could be, and currently the situation is worsened compared to what it was then. Also, as I have said before, that the park and generally the IBA is shares boundary with communal areas. Livestock and overgrazing is one of the challenges that is also causing some problem in terms of biodiversity in the area. Community livestock find itself grazing in some of the parts of the IBA, and therefore degrading some of the streams, trampling on the streams, and of course affecting some of the wetland areas. Then another challenge is that of urban expansion, mismanagement and drainage of some of the wetland areas. And I've said earlier on that Nyanga National Park shares boundary with the resort town of Nyanga. And as you can see on your screens, the town of Nyanga is expanding into the park. There's no longer a buffer zone between Nyanga National Park and the town. And that area, which is in green circle, used to be part of the Nyanga National Park, but it has since been taken over by Nyanga town. And of interest to us, if you can see on your screens, that particular area which I have circled in red, when we were conducting our surveys, we actually recorded plenty of blue swallows in that particular area. So that also points to how some of the areas that are being used by blue swallows for foraging has been affected. And apart from some of the issues that I've mentioned on, fragmentation of some of the remaining grasslands due to agricultural activities is another serious issue that we noted. So going forward, we came up with 3 major conservation interventions that we think needs to be considered. And firstly, in terms, we have got habitat conservation and proper management of ecosystems. And then 2, in the communities, we have got awareness and capacity building. And lastly, there is answering the unknowns or filling the knowledge gap. Then with regards to habitat conservation and management, we propose that there is need to, maybe for BirdLife Zimbabwe to influence and support the Nyanga Rural District Council to develop and implement local environmental action plan in fulfillment of the available legislation for Zimbabwe, that's the Environmental Management Act and the Towns and Regional Country Planning Act, and also to support the Nyanga RDC to adopt some nature-based solutions for climate change mitigation through restoration of some of the degraded ecosystem in Nyanga town. And secondly, there is need to enhance institutional capacity for Nyanga RDC so that they mainstream and integrate biodiversity priorities in their land use planning and decision making. Then we also think that there is need to develop and implement an effective invasive alien species management plan. Currently, there's been some efforts by the Nyanga National Park to rope in communities so that they remove some of the black wattle, but then the process is a bit slow, and they don't have the capacity to deal. So there is need for a holistic approach to the management of these alien species. And lastly, we propose that they need to secure some of the breeding sites for blue swallows that are in communities and also in commercial farms, probably through a comprehensive stewardship initiative. Then in terms of communities, to kind of close the gap which is there in terms of their knowledge on blue swallows, we think that there is a need to enhance community awareness on blue swallows by probably firstly reviving some of the site support groups that used to be there in Nyanga and also provide capacity to them. And also there is need to reach out to schools to instill the love for birds amongst school children so that we build a stronger generation that loves birds and biodiversity. And we can do this through presentations, forming some birding clubs in schools, and also profile the importance of blue swallows in the mainstream media. Then lastly, in terms of research, there's need to expand monitoring and surveillance of blue swallows into other areas that are outside Nyanga, and that is to involve the Wonde Valley, Stapleford, and also to areas such as Manimani. And we need also to conduct a research on the impact to find out how the changing climate is impacting on the ecology of blue swallows. And also, we definitely need to consider researching on the state of the blue swallow migration routes, and also to see the average migration success rate so that we can be able to make informed decision in terms of helping the survival of blue swallows. As I conclude, and on behalf of my team that I was leading in carrying out this work, I would like to give my appreciations to the African Bird Club for funding this project, and also to BirdLife Zimbabwe for supporting us. BirdLife Zimbabwe actually provided us with the vehicle to conduct the surveys. We are very much appreciative. And also to the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority, particularly the Nyanga National Park. And also lastly to my project team, which includes Abigail, who has just presented, and also to Ronnie and other colleagues. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for following the presentation. Back to you, Julia.
Right, thank you everybody. Thank you Toga, thank you Abigail and Chingy, and thank you to the audience for being such a great audience and listening very quietly. Thanks so much. So we're up for questions. The suggestion is that we just take 10 minutes of questions if there are questions, so that because we're slightly over time. I would like to congratulate our presenters on, having kept a good time, and if you'd like to put your hand up, and if you have a question, and we'll give you the floor. And otherwise, you can also put your questions on into the chat. I would like to also say that we also have Fadzai Machimbo, who is the BirdLife Zimbabwe Preventing Extinction Program Manager in the group with us, and who will, as the our Preventing Extinction Program Manager, she also has experience with blue swallows, and together with Shingy will be able to ask her further questions. Sorry, Fadzai, I've dragged you in. Right, are there any?
Yeah, I think there was a hand up, Julia.
Sorry, there's a hand up. Is that George? George, can I?
Yes, hi, I'm George Ledeck. I'm joining from Virginia in the United States, and retired lead ecologist at the World Bank, and also a keen birder. Regarding the blue swallow, my question is whether there's an opportunity to scale up the removal of invasive species, invasive wattle and pine trees, by somehow linking it with various labor-intensive public works programs. A lot of countries, especially in the context of COVID, are spending a lot of money to hire people, whether it's food for work or other kinds of wage programs, to do things out in the countryside. In South Africa, there's a program called Working for Water that I used to work with in the, not in the blue swallow area, but in the Western Cape. But basically it's removing invasive species, which, as it turns out, were sucking up a lot of water. So I'm wondering if there's any opportunity to scale up, what's been started on a small scale with local communities, and put more money into the invasive species removal so that the grasslands can become better for blue swallows. And then for the Lilian's lovebird, it might be useful to experiment with artificial nest boxes. There are quite a few endangered parrot and parakeet species in South America that have benefited greatly from putting up artificial nest boxes, because the availability of natural nesting holes is a limiting factor in their reproduction. So I'm wondering if something like that might be worth trying or experimenting with for Lilian lovebirds. Thanks.
Thank you, George. Yes, definitely. I don't know if Fadzai or Shingy want to answer the blue swallow, the issue of the working for eliminating alien invasive species in Nyanga. Do you want to give that a bash?
Yes, Julia, and thank you, George. I would say yes, there is a great opportunity for scaling up from the initiative that has been started by the Nyanga National Park together with the communities. And as I've alluded earlier on, that there is lack of capacity in terms of scaling up. I would say that the main objective firstly will be to looking at some of the opportunities of how to firstly hold further, expansion of these invasives into the grasslands, and then look at how then we can reverse the process to restore some of the grasslands.
Right. I would like to ask Tiwonge, who has her hand up, and maybe perhaps afterwards she can go straight into her question, if she could possibly, with her experience, answer the question on the Lilian lovebirds in terms of nest boxes. Tiwonge.
Hi, Julia. So Abigail, thank you for the presentation. Actually, when I raised my hand, I was just about to say to Abigail that the issue of the nest cavities and the issue of mopane, large mopane becoming scarce, for whether it's timber charcoal, natural mortality. This is the first time I'm hearing the elephant debarking is an issue. And this week, actually, we have just started a trial for nest boxes in the National Park here in Malawi. So the design borrowed a lot from what you mentioned South American teams have done for larger parrots. It's a bit different because ours is a smaller one, but we have a prototype out there, 60 of them, just 30 actually as of today, but we hope to put 60. And I wonder if that is indeed something Abigail would be interested in and would be happy to share, because it would be nice to trial these in a number of places, but also we need to improve the design as we begin to learn about it. So yeah, definitely nest boxes is something we're looking ahead, because yeah, the mopane is really, really threatened. It's not being taken notice of as other species, but the large mopane is not as common as we think they are, and these birds are struggling. And I'm wondering, one of the results that was interesting from Abigail's study was that those large numbers in Albida in the wet season. So we get them here too, but usually they're only there in the dry season, and most of the time the wet season they will stay in Mopani, and I think we've seen that in Zambia as well. So this was interesting, and I'm wondering, why are they staying even during the breeding season, and what is happening there? And it could be the same issues that we're talking about. The use of combretum as well, I think, is coming in. This is also recorded in Zambia. It's coming in because of this issue of cavities. These cavity dwellers are losing their habitat, and we really need to start thinking ahead and looking at other ways that we could conserve them. Thank you. But excellent presentation, Abigail. I learned a lot there.
Thank you so much, Tiwonge. That's fantastic. And that speaks to the need to collaborate regionally in the range of the birds range, the Lilian lovebirds range. So thank you so much, Tiwonge. That is really great. Hopefully we'll be able to get some more funding for Abigail to carry on her research in collaboration with you. Thank you so much. Next, anyone else? Do we have another question? Anyone? Yes, Paul.
Well, I'll ask a short question. Thank you very much, all three speakers. Great stuff. Really enjoyed the presentations. I just had a very simple question actually for Shingy, which was, I wondered, you mentioned that you were surprised how many of the blue swallows were occurring outside the protected area. And I just wondered if they were definitely breeding outside the protected area, or if some of that was birds that were feeding, but actually perhaps nesting in more natural areas.
Shingy, did you hear that? Yep.
Sorry, Paul, I didn't get you very well.
Sorry, it was just to know whether the birds that you recorded outside the national park, whether they were definitely breeding outside the national park, or perhaps just feeding?
Oh, okay. So this was mainly those who were sighted foraging, not necessarily the nesting sites.
Hi, Julia. If I can sort of just jump in there. In previous surveys, we have found evidence of birds breeding outside the national park using either sinkholes. And one of the surprising phenomena was the use of even buildings, human habitated buildings for use in breeding. So there's definitely evidence of breeding outside the park. And that's not just in Nyanga, but in Chimanimani, as well as in Vumba, and also the other places where blue swallows are breeding in Zimbabwe. There is definitely evidence of breeding outside the national parks.
Thanks.
Do we have any more questions? Please feel free, if you have any queries after this meeting, this talk, to contact us should you have any other questions or for us. We will be happy to respond afterwards as well. Paul, I would say I don't see any other questions, so I will give you the floor to close the meeting, I think. What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you very much, Julia, and thank you, Toga, Abigail and Shingy, for excellent presentations. I found them very interesting. It's great to see the two small grants that were that ABC was able to fund in Zimbabwe in the last couple of years. Really pleased to see the results of those. And really, I was lucky enough to visit Zimbabwe a couple of years ago. Went to Chimanimani with Toga, so I saw some of the excellent work that BirdLife Zimbabwe have been doing. So thanks very much, and thanks everyone for joining. As you say, if you want to see the talks again, you can, hopefully in a few days' time, they'll be up on YouTube via the ABC website, and look forward to seeing you some of you again soon at one of our other talks. Again, thank you very much for BirdLife Zimbabwe, and I wish you a very good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
So
we got so used to virtual. Clapping is one of the things we can do with. Thank you all. It was lovely to be here. Thanks, Paul.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody. Thank you to the speakers, everything. Thank you.
thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Julia.